What is Israel's new plan to control Gaza? Israel's war cabinet has approved a plan to occupy all of Gaza, destroy any remaining infrastructure, and hold it indefinitely in order to do what it says is completely destroy Hamas. If the group fails to reach a deal by the end of US President Donald Trump's visit to the Middle East in mid-May, then Israel said it will go ahead with the plan. The plan, called Gideon's Chariots, has 3 phases. Israel has already begun phase 1, called preparation, by bombing remaining infrastructure in Rafah and starting to build a gated compound there for civilians. Next is phase 2, called mobilization, which plans to force Palestinians southward into those compounds in Rafah. Since March, Israel's military has already expanded so-called no-go zones in Gaza, taking up 70% of the Strip and pushing Palestinians towards the coast. Lastly, phase 3, the ground maneuver, would see Israel's army conquer Gaza and stay there permanently. Everywhere north of the Marag axis would become emptied and cut off from aid. Once Palestinians reach Rafah, they can either stay in the compounds or flee to third countries, which would amount to ethnic cleansing. Israel calls this compound a humanitarian zone, but aid groups refuse to be a part of it, saying that they could be liable for war crimes if they do. The plan is as follows. Israel will allowing 60 aid trucks carrying basic items into Gaza per day and not an ounce more. This is 10% of the normal amount that would enter Gaza. Israel's military will inspect these trucks and then control their transport to the compounds. There, they will set up distribution hubs, each meant to serve 5,000 to 6,000 people, under the control of American private security contractors, Safe Reach Solutions and UG Solutions. Palestinians will need to pass security checkpoints through facial recognition or biometric screening in order to access the area and receive aid. If approved, a representative from each family will collect a package with 2 weeks' worth of food and hygiene items, but Israel could deny them aid for any reason, for example, knowing someone who has worked in Gaza's public sector. Throughout the war, Israel has detained and killed doctors, medics, soup kitchen chefs, journalists, and aid workers without providing a reason. The scheme will be funded by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, registered in Switzerland earlier this year and led by 3 men without any apparent links to humanitarian relief. Israel aims to stop aid groups from operating other than providing workers to hand out the aid in these hubs. But aid groups have rejected the plan, with the UN saying it seems to reinforce control over life-sustaining items as a pressure tactic. The military strategy. It forces civilians to move into a gated compound under Israel's military control.
Will be more and more people concentrated in some kind of an internment camp where they will say this family member can get a box once a week without anything to barely survive if we can facial recognize that one member of that one family. It's total control of a civilian population, deciding who will suffer, who will have aid, who will not. This new Israeli scheme is really an ultimatum saying the little aid we will allow in, we will dictate who will get it, where, and if they get it, and they will only provide it, it seems, to a few concentration points in southern Gaza, so people who cannot move to those places will be eliminated. We cannot be part of a dictatum coming from a party to an armed conflict on whom should receive humanitarian aid.
But it's not just aid groups. Israel itself is divided on the plan. Israel's military chief of staff, Eyal Zamir, has warned that Israel may not have enough troops to complete the plan and that they could lose the hostages if they go ahead with it. The government has called up 70,000 reservists, but Zamir warned that they are less motivated to keep fighting for the vague goal of destroying Hamas without a real plan to return the captives and find a day-after plan for Gaza. Israel's military is worried that 30 to 50% of summoned reservists won't show up, while public polls show that 60 to 70% of Israelis oppose an expanded operation to occupy Gaza and would prefer a plan to return the captives and end the war. The Hostage and Missing Families Forum has also sharply criticized the plan, saying that it would essentially give up on the hostages, as well as Israel's security and national resilience. But Israel's leaders seem determined to go ahead with it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that victory over Hamas, rather than returning the captives, is the war's supreme goal. His finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, also said that Israel's military won't withdraw from captured territory territories, even in exchange for the return of the captives. But they still need Israeli reservists and foreign aid groups to cooperate. Instead, after months of claiming that bombing and besieging Gaza would force Hamas into a deal or destroy it entirely, Israel is facing an increasingly cynical audience inside and outside of the country. Reservist soldiers don't understand why they're being asked to deploy once again to retake areas they destroyed months ago. Israelis don't understand how another offensive will end the war. And the world doesn't understand how permanently occupying Gaza, rounding up its population into compounds controlled by American mercenaries, and forcing them to survive on subsistence level can be acceptable. But for now, at least, Israel's government is not backing down. Whether anyone will stop them remains to be seen.